Hello friends and fellow artists, Miss Katie here. Today I'm going to show you how to make some three-dimensional paper flowers out of either tissue paper or coffee filters or some kind of thin paper, maybe newspapers or something you have around like that. So let's look at some potential supplies that you'll need for this project. So I say potential supplies because you may be using other things than what I'm showing you, but here are some supplies that I'm going to be using to kind of show you some different flower techniques, and you may get crafty and discover a new way to do this. So tissue paper, some coffee filters, a way to tie up your flowers, either some string, embroidered floss. I'm going to use some pipe cleaners, a stapler might come in handy, and then some poking sticks, something sharp that you can poke some holes into your coffee filters, and something to poke your holes onto that you won't damage the table. So if you have a craft mat like this, that'll be fine. If not, you could stack some cardboard together or a cardboard box. You also might be wanting to use markers and possibly a spray bottle with just some plain water in it. I'm going to show you the coffee filter method of making some flowers first. So if you have white ones, you can color them a little bit with markers and then spray them with water. Now your markers are going to need to be water-based for this to work. You will not be able to use your alcohol-based like Ohu markers or anything like that, Sharpies on it. So I have these brown coffee filters also, and I was thinking, maybe I'll make a sunflower with this in the center. But for now, I'm just going to lightly color onto my coffee filters some different colors, and then I'm going to spray them a little bit. It's going to help kind of move the color around. Now you don't really need to do very much in the middle, so I'm just going to do a few of these, speed this along, and then show you what's next. As you can see, I have them all colored. Now I colored them, you might have noticed, from the inside out or from the outside in. This is called a radius, where you have it from the middle and it lines that come out. It radiates. Most flowers radiate from a central point, right? So I have an example of one that I did not color that way. We're going to do a little experiment and see how it goes. I also did not pay any attention to the colors I used. So let's see what happens when we get these wet. Now, if I were to just spray these all down in a big pile, it's gonna become muddy. So what I'm gonna do is grab a piece of paper. You can grab like a piece of computer paper, or whatever you have, and I'm gonna lay them out, and then I will spray them, and then before I use them, they need to kind of dry up. So I'm gonna just spritz them lightly with water, and you can watch as the colors begin to spread. It'll take just a minute. As you can see, the colors are starting to spread. So you could use a number of coffee filters. You could use 6 or 5 or 4, or around that, I think. You'll have to do a little experimenting and see what happens if you use more than that, but I think you will need at least 4 or 5 minimum. So if you have a big watercolor brush, you can also just paint some water on here. You could use a small brush too, it'll just take a little longer. And I would just go over it kind of one time and then let it sit. I'm painting in the same direction as my lines though. I wouldn't want to come and just scribble this all around. No, would not want to do that. So it's a bit more saturated than the other ones. And for time's sake, I'm going to spray the rest of those. I just wanted to demonstrate what you could do if you didn't have a spritzer. Francesca, do you want to see what's going on up here? Francesca wants to see. Here. Francesca does not like water sprays. Alright, I'm going to let these dry out and then I'll show you what to do next. So these are pretty much dry and I would like to show you how to get these all put together now. What you're going to do is you're going to first lay them out and figure out which order. What order do you want them in? Sometimes I feel like flowers are darker in the middle and then the petals get lighter as they get older. But you could certainly do this any way you want. And I noticed also the more water you put on this, really, the more it spreads out, but sometimes like it can distort it a bit. So it's kind of a happy medium. So I'm going to go with an order like so. And now this is the part, guys, that you might want to use your poke and stick for. And I did a little experimenting with this, and I think this method works pretty well. I'm going to take some cardboard, or if you have just a mat like this, but you don't want to be doing this on your mom's, dad's dining room table. Let's just put it that way. So now I'm going to find the middle, like so. And once I fold these, I'll be able to kind of see where the middle is. And then I'm going to carefully poke 2 holes. 1, 2 next to each other, like buttonholes, if you will. And if something like that doesn't make big enough holes for your string or whatever it is you're going to use, then you can use a bigger poke and stick. And then I'm going to take a pipe cleaner or a wire or a twisty tie, and I'm going to thread them through just like a button. 1, then 2. Poke it through the back. And again, this was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coffee filters. And then once I have it pulled through, I'm going to kind of start pulling up my centers like so. And then once I have it pulled up, I'm going to really kind of crinkle it up here. Crinkle it a bit, but not too much, just a bit. Then I'm going to kind of pull up the next layer, kind of keeping it held together there. And I'm going to pull up the next layer, and so on and so forth, pulling up my layers. Okay, so now you have a beautiful flower. It may be a little flopsy-mopsy. What you can do is you can take your pipe cleaner and kind of pinch it here. I feel like this is going to be really good if you can do this. And then maybe wrap it up a bit. Wrap it up, give it a little bit of a base here. Let's see if this kind of holds it up a little bit together better. And it kind of holds it tighter. I think that will be nice if you can do that. It would be really pretty, actually, now that I'm looking at this, to do the edges darker. Wouldn't that be nice? You could do like lighter with a dark edge. That would be really pretty. And then you have a lovely kind of tie-dye flower. It's like a peony or a rose. Beautiful. A different variation of the coffee filters will be to make a smaller center. I had these brown ones, but now I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, oh, it would have been nicer maybe to use some brown marker and spray these and give these a little bit more color and texture. So I want these to be smaller than these. How do I do that? Well, glad you asked. You're going to fold them in half. Then you're going to fold them in half again. Oh, I have 2, by the way, 2. And now what I can do is I'm going to cut this a little bit smaller, like so, okay? I'm gonna cut it along the edge, about like this, because I'm still thinking I wanna do one more thing to it. And when you open it up, you have a smaller circle. But while I have it closed up like this, I think I could do something else kind of interesting. I think I could take my scissors and do some fringe on this. Do a little fringe. Now I wouldn't want to do this too far, but I'm doing it about a ½ inch or so. Okay, so now this is all fringed up. Now I'm going to open it back up carefully to keep them together. And I'm going to take these. Now, something else you could do with these, guys, is you could fold these up and make more petal shapes by doing a similar thing. We might just do 2 of them at a time, so we don't have to cut through so many layers. And after I have it folded twice, I might fold it one more time. And from here, I'm going to cut either maybe 2 petals, petal, petal, like cut maybe a V out of this, or I could take this and cut 1 petal like that. So do you want more petals or fewer petals? Maybe it depends on what layer you're on, like in a certain order. Maybe there's bigger petals towards the back. Okay, so this will be like a middle layer or so. So maybe I'll do just, maybe I'll try for 2, and then I'll do 1 and show you how that looks. So, oh yeah, I told you to cut a V. So I'm gonna cut something that comes like this. I am curving it, but you certainly wouldn't have to. You could just cut a straight V out, and let's see how that looks. That's pretty nice. I feel like that gives a good amount of petals, and I'm wondering if we just did 1, if it would be too few. So I might just stick with that, actually, the V method. So I'm gonna do that again, only this time I will show you what happens if you don't curve it. So this time I'm going to cut a V. So there's 2 points, a point here and a point here. And I will just kind of cut it straight for you this time so you can see what happens. Okay, I think that'll still be very nice. Now if you don't get it super, super pointy on the ends, I think it's still okay. It'll be a little straight there. If that bothers you, you can fold it back up and you can cut more of a point. Just angle it over a little bit more, okay? So I'm gonna cut these last 2, and then we'll put them together and see how it looks. Let's get these laid out in the order we want, and I'm gonna do lighter in the middle, I think, and then work my way around. And what I think I'm gonna do is stagger my petals. That means I'm gonna place them not all the same direction, but kind of off, okay? So I'm gonna go kind of place them around, round and round. And I have approximately the middle here, and then I've got my center. And I'm gonna do the same thing here, where I take my cardboard and poke a hole, 2 holes. Now, if you get this to a place and you're like, ah, this is my center, it's feeling really big, we could cut this down some more. Just fold it back up and recut it, okay? So let's stack them up, do some punching. Okay, so that didn't work so good. I kind of need to start it with this pointier stick. I feel like you could use a very sharp pencil for this though. I think I'm having a hard time because I had extra layers this time. If you can pick and choose your pipe cleaner, I'd go with a color that is the same color as your flower maybe. Okay, so same thing. We're just gonna start pulling our layers up. Be gentle with it because you could definitely rip this. If you rip one off, no big deal. Just do without it probably. I don't know if you could really repair it. Okay, I feel like my sunflower is looking more like a daffodil, but that's okay. I think my sunflower would have been better if I had a darker center and maybe a little bit more saturated colors, but it's still kind of cool. And I hope you guys get some good ideas for this. Like, you could definitely do a lot of different things. Again, I'm gonna kind of pinch this together, and then I'm gonna wrap one of my ends around as tight as I can, or my string. If you're using string, I feel like that would be really good. Even twist this down. This green is nice because it kind of looks like the end of a flower there. All right, and there you go, one daffodil. All right, so this next flower is going to be similar to the coffee filters. You're going to take a bit of tissue paper. Oh, Dottie wants to come up. Come on up. And I'm thinking 5 inches is actually a pretty good size, or somewhere around that, because my tissue paper, half of it this way, is around 10 inches. So I feel like I can get a lot of, excuse me, Dottie. I feel like I can get pretty good usage of my tissue paper this way. And when I'm finished, we'll count to see how many sheets I have. So I'm going to fold it in half like this. And then I'm going to take my circle that I found to trace. You can find whatever circle you want. Lids work really good. And then I'm going to trace it onto here like so. When I'm finished, I'm going to staple it in the middle. That'll hold everything together when I cut it out. You could certainly use multiple colors in this. I just thought I'd keep it simple for now and do one color. Okay, so after you have this all cut out, you're going to kind of start doing a little bit like what we did on the coffee filters, and just take layer by layer and pull them up gently, not to rip them out from the staple. That was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Okay, so this was actually 14 layers, which was a lot. You could definitely do this with fewer layers. This was just kind of the edge of my tissue paper folded over, and that's how it got to be this number. But you could do fewer for sure, and that might be easier to cut. So, you know, I like to try to use what is logical in whatever I'm cutting out. I don't want to have any wasteful scraps. So you can kind of scrunch up the back a little bit, scrunch it up, and there's one beautiful rose. One beautiful rose. All right, let's look at some other methods. Hey guys, one more thing I wanted to show you is I was thinking about how to attach this to something after I had it finished, and I thought, oh, I'll just do the same method. I'm gonna stick my hole maker poke and stick twice and punch it through like this. But then I remembered these beads I had that had big holes, and I was thinking, that could be interesting. So if you have some larger hole beads, you might want to mess with something like that. I feel like there's a lot of cool stuff you could do with this, is what I'm getting at. So don't limit yourself to only things I've shown you, okay? Yeah, so yeah, there you go. A little extra embellishment. You could glue a gem in there too, right? A little diamond. Be cool, something. Put something in the middle maybe. All right, the next method I'm going to show you is a classic design for making tissue paper flowers. I like to use the tissue paper kind of as much already folded as I can, because it gets to be a big mess when you start trying to open it up and cut it out. So I'm going to actually just leave this folded for now. And then I'm going to cut off a portion that I will accordion fold. Okay, so I'm going to cut a piece that's maybe around a foot long or so. Okay, so I'm going to just take my scissors, and I'm not going to mark anything. I'm just going to cut something out, cut a piece out. This will be a bigger flower. And what I'm going to have left is this piece that I'll open up and show you. It's actually going to be 2 pieces, 3 pieces. This was just one sheet, but it was already kind of folded up, all right? So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to accordion pleat it all the way down, about 1 inch or so, pleats. So make a fold on the short end, and then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to fold back the other way. Then I'm going to fold this way and that way until it's all the way folded. Make sure you're pleating really you're creasing your pleats really well, because if you don't, it's going to kind of come undone. Okay, so I have it all pleated down. Now I'm going to find approximately the middle, and I could staple this maybe a couple times, or I could use a twisty tie like this from the middle. And if I have this going on, then I could probably use the end to attach it to something. You could also tie it with a string. However you can get this secure is pretty much what you're going to do. So I'm going to twist this on, and yep, it's about in the middle. And then once you have it in the middle, you're going to take one layer at a time, and you're going to just pull this layer up. And it's going to take a little bit of patience to get it really pulled out there, because you don't want to tear it. And you're going to pull it all the way out. And actually, let's just go ahead and do this whole side. Actually, I lied. Let's do this layer, then that layer. We're gonna do both of these layers first. So one side, then the other, and that's what's gonna help this open up a lot. And then I'm going to pull out my next layer, being very gentle. Kind of go around in a circle, really. And just keep doing this until it's all finished. Now, this is pretty much, I would say, the most basic kind of tissue paper flower you can make. And this is really a really fluffy one, huh? So, on the next one I'm going to show you is going to be how you make it look a little bit nicer than this. It's going to be the same concept, but we're just going to do something a little different to the edges before we start pulling it in. So the next one, I'm going to graduate onto using a few extra colors. And this time I want there to be a smaller center and a bigger flower. So I'm going to cut some yellow, and I'm not going to cut it that full 12 inches. I'm going to cut this one to be around 7 inches or so, something smaller. And I say or so because I really don't think you have to measure these. I think you can just eyeball them and it'll be great. Measuring is going to take you a lot longer, but if you're somebody who likes to measure, this one is about 8.5. It's going to be a little smaller by the time I'm finished. So I'm going to set this aside. And my next layers, I'm going to cut these both at the same time. These I will do a little bigger. Let's do these around 10.5, 11. So we don't want to use all of this because it would be too fluffy and hard to fold in. So I'm going to pull out 2 layers of the peach. Two layers of the orange and 2 of the yellow. So I have them layered together and I'm looking at it and I'm actually thinking, oh, I want my yellow to be a little bit smaller. So I'm actually going to go back and cut this a little bit smaller, I think. Again, this does not have to be a perfect cut. As you can see, it's not going to really matter once you get it all pulled out. So what we're going to do next, guys, is we are going to pleat this up in the same way we did before. And we're going to keep the yellow centered. Now I would call this one probably a little bit more advanced. So if you haven't done the first few, this would probably be one you'd want to do after you do the first few that I showed you. What I'm going to show you now is how to make the ends look a little nicer than just straight. What we can do is we can take our scissors and we can clip them to either, say, a point like this. We could fringe them carefully, fringe them if it's not too thick. Or we could round them, cut a rounded petal, okay? Around it. I'm going to kind of point this one though because I already did the other one, but be very careful when you're cutting this because it's pretty thick. You're going to probably need to get some bigger scissors to cut this. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to adhere this or attach it together. hold it together, tie it down. And then I'm gonna start pulling these layers out. One at a time. You can see it will already kind of start opening up as a circle. Now you may tear this, and that's okay. I bet you won't notice by the time it's finished. Hello friends, what do you think? My new hat. Well, that wraps up this flower making tutorial. I hope you had as much fun as I did. And honestly, I feel like there's a lot you could do with this. So don't, like I said, don't limit yourself to what I've just shown you. Do some experimenting and see what you can come up with. I feel like you can make a gorgeous bouquet. So please reach out to me if you have any questions or need any advice on materials. But until then, I will see you next week for our Zoom meeting, and I'm looking forward to that. Bye.